Hi everyone, this is Jing Tao from Newcastle, Australia. It is a really great opportunity for me to present a research paper we developed last year, namely Institutional and Business Group Influences on CSR Performance, Analysis of Multi-Level Interactive Effects to AIB 2020 online. This paper was co-authored with my PhD supervisor, Professor Stephen Chen, and Associate Professor Hao Tan. First of all, I would like to talk about what we did in the paper. Under the big umbrella of institutional effects on firms' CSR, we're trying to identify the effect of national level institutional effects as well as business group level institutional effects. In particular, we are looking into the interactive effect of the above the two effects on firms' CSR. We're using a two-way and a three-way interaction model. The second, I wanted to present to you the research model, the theoretical model that we used. Yes, I understand it looks a little bit complicated, and we realized the issue, and in the current version of the paper, we're trying to tear it apart and trying to present the rationale in different research paper, trying to simplify it. Since this paper was submitted last year anyway, so I would like to explain the rationale behind it. So at first, at the national level institutions, we're trying to divide the institution into formal and informal institution here. We're trying to argue the first hypothesis is the development of formal institution here will positively affect the firm's CSR. In the second set of hypotheses, first of all, we're trying to argue the informal institution here, namely the collectivism, will negatively affect the firm's CSR. So that said, if the firm is operating in a more collectivistic culture, the firm is less likely to perform corporate social responsibility. And the second part of the second hypothesis set, we're trying to argue the informal institution will moderating the relationship between the development of formal institution and the firm's CSR. That would be a positive moderation effect. In the next set of hypotheses, hypothesis 3, we have three sub-hypotheses. The first one is trying to argue if a firm is business group affiliated, the firm is likely to have a higher, better CSR performance. The second is the business group affiliation tends to affect the relationship of formal institution and firm's CSR. And next, in the third part of the hypothesis 3, business group affiliation would have a negative effect in moderating firms' CSR and the relationship to the national level informal institution. The last hypothesis is trying to argue a three-way interactive effect. Here, we can see the business group affiliation on hypothesis 2b here. So I'm presenting the hypothesis list here. The last one is the collectivistic culture and the business group jointly moderate the relationship between the development level of formal institutions in a society and a firm's CSR, such that the relationship is strongest if firm or business group affiliated in a high collectivism culture. Our contributions, we explain how national level formal and informal institutions interact and jointly affect firms' CSR. We contribute to the research on business groups by explaining how business group affiliations affect affiliators' CSR both directly and indirectly. Third, we argue that there is a joint moderating effect in the three-way interaction model that takes both the micro and the micro level institutions into account. In methodology, We employed 578 publicly listed firms in mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, and India over the period from 2009 to 2015. This part is also we are currently strengthened when trying to employ more data up to 2019. The second is we're trying to combine several databases as well as studying firms' annual report to identify the business group affiliations. And this is actually the hard part and also time-consuming part. The third one is we are using assets for ESG data, that is environmental score, social score, and the governance score as the proxy for firms' CSR. And we use a multi-level crossed random effect model. As the result, we found evidence to support majority of our hypothesis, except for hypothesis 2A, high collectivism culture in a society is negatively related to firms' CSR. In terms of funding, we found that the collectivism culture traits will enhance the effect of the development of formal institution. We found business group affiliations has a positive effect on firms' environmental and social performance. And we also found that business groups as institutional linkage will also moderate the effect of national level institutions on firms' CSR in the two-way interactions model. At last, and most interestingly, we found that the positive effect of development of formal institutions will be strongest if the firms are business group affiliated in a high collectivism culture, giving the feature of collectivism that facilitates the communal sharing of the resource pools provided by the business group, in which firms within the group are entitled to share in the resource equally. That is the three-way joint moderating test. What to improve? When we have the time to look at this submission again, we realize that first of all, the model is too complicated. Surely we found there's a great potential to develop this to a high quality research paper, but the first thing is we need to clarify it, simplify it, highlight the most interesting argument, as well as strengthen the theoretical support to what we're trying to do here. And also we found the informal institution part. We're trying to use the collectivism as one of the proxy to represent the informal institution is a little bit narrow. We're trying to use some of other method, take them into account. And they also have some other factors we could take into the consideration and trying to enhance the argument, especially the theoretical part, like the ownership, and as well as the format of the organization. And also the database. And currently we have data from 5 economies, and we're trying to enlarge it to cover some of the others. Maybe we could bring in some developed country as a reference to compare the result in different nations as well. So in all, I think the current feeling is this too ambitious, trying to explain a lot of things in one paper, made the theoretical models too complicated, and we're trying to simplify it. And the other recommendations and suggestions are welcomed. You can find my contact information from the first page of the PPT slides, and the paper is available on request. And this is a reference. And thank you for your attention and stay safe.